This radio show is brought to you by All In Cincinnati. All In Cincinnati, an equity coalition, is sponsored by BI3, Greater Cincinnati Foundation, the Carol Ann and Ralph V. Hale Jr. Foundation, Fifth Third Foundation, Interact for Health, and the United Way of Greater Cincinnati. Thanks for tuning in.
We're rolling together now. We're rolling together now.
Hello and welcome back to the All In Cincinnati radio show, where we are all in it together to eliminate disparities and inequities for Black women in Hamilton County. I am Denisha Porter, and I am honored to serve as the director of All In Cincinnati and your host for our segment today about Black women and our hair. The Garfield Messenger sums it up nicely. Hair is a centerpiece of Black culture. It symbolizes identity, resistance, creative expression, and freedom. As stated by Odell Hairblog, Black hair has a uniquely meaningful history as a symbol of survival, resistance, and celebration. For much of our history, our hair has been widely known as a tool of oppression, and our society's perceptions of Black hair still influence how we are treated today. Thanks to the Crown Act, workplace diversity advancements, and the determination of many, our hair has become a tool of empowerment. Hair means something different to each of us. Today, we have several Black boss ladies who will discuss hair maintenance, options for hair loss, hair in the workplace, and efforts to pass and adhere to Crown Act legislation in Hamilton County, Ohio, and across the nation. Allow me to introduce our esteemed panelists. Sherry Sims is the founder and CEO of the Black Career Women's Network, a national career development organization dedicated to fostering the professional growth of Black women. We also have Q in the building, and she is the founder and CEO of the Elite Cafe Beauty Studio and online boutique on Montgomery Road in Silverton. And then finally, we have Shanda Tutt, and she is the founder and CEO of the Glow Beauty Lounge at Salons by JC of Cincinnati and Brookwood. Thank you, ladies.
For having us.
Thank you for having us.
You are so welcome. So if you guys can introduce yourselves, and I'll start with Sherry.
All right, let's see. I think that was a great introduction. I don't know what else to say. I have about 27 years of experience in human resources and also currently a director of diversity and inclusion. So talking about hair in the workplace is important. I've seen quite a bit of things that women have experienced in the workplace. So I'm so excited to have this conversation with everyone today.
I love it. And I think I said Shanda. Is it Shanda?
It's Shonda.
Shonda.
Yes.
Okay, I can correct myself.
It's okay. It happens a lot.
Shonda, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yes, I'm Shonda. I've been in the business, in the beauty industry for about 30 years now. And I specialize in all types of hair. So here we are today. I'm glad to be here with you all today because hair is good, bad, and ugly. So I'm loving it.
I love that you said that. And then Q, what do you have to add to the conversation?
Well, I've been licensed in the industry for about 19 years here, but me being the oldest of 11 children that my mother gave birth to, I've been seasoned with hair for a very, very long time, as she had 7 daughters before she had her first son.
Ooh.
So I was charged with the responsibility of maintaining all of our hair for every day of the year, summers, schools, anything that was happening, pictures and everything like that. So that's what I have to contribute, just my very, very long, dedicated commitment to hair. Since I've been licensed, most of my clientele is natural. And within that realm, I do a variety of different services. I do a bunch of weaving extensions. I make custom wigs. I do a lot of natural hair and keep it within its natural pattern. A lot of silk presses, color, cuts. So those are some of the things that I specialize in off the top of my head.
And you do a beautiful job. Okay, so let's start about talking about a healthy crown. What do you need to do to have healthy hair?
You definitely have to make sure that your hair has good porosity. That's the most important thing, the ability of the hair to retain and absorb moisture and keep it. And if that isn't the case, then there are a bunch of different things as a professional stylist that we can do to balance out the porosity of the hair.
Okay. You want to add anything, Shonda?
Yeah, I'll add to that. Just keeping the hair nice and healthy. Good cleaning, good maintenance, conditioning is always a plus and a healthy diet as well. People always forget about, what you eat also comes out in your hair. So you definitely have to maintain a healthy diet and exercise.
I love that you talked about diet. So, what are some other things like protective styles, products, maintenance, and any other habits or supplements?
Medications are important too. That stuff comes out in the hair.
Okay.
So, like diuretics, high blood pressure, nicotine, all of that stuff comes out in the hair too. So, there a lot of those things are unavoidable. You got to take your high blood pressure medication. People are addicted to nicotine. They probably really don't plan on stopping. So, the things that we do is we really get a good understanding of the client's lifestyle to determine what we can do to offer them services that they are a good fit for, that they can maintain outside of the salon. And then, follow up and ask questions. What did they like? What didn't they like? So we can figure out how to strengthen that service and make it customizable for them.
I love that. And drinking more water, right? You talked about diet.
Yes.
Is that important?
Yes. Drinking your water. I'm not really that good at that, but I mean, I preach to my clients all the time about how important water is. And to add to what she was saying about medication, medication definitely plays a role in the health of your hair. A lot of people, the first time I consult someone about their hair, I'm asking them if they're on medication, what their diet is like. And that definitely plays a role. So you can kind of manage the medication and manage their hair based on, what they can do. And also, working with their physicians to, kind of control what's going on with their lifestyle.
I love it. So, what are some things that we are not doing good for our hair?
A lot of things that are not being done with the hair is people are really killing their hair follicles. They're doing a bunch of things that are smothering the hair follicle. And when the hair follicle keeps trying to grow and penetrate the scalp and come out, if it keeps getting trapped and it keeps getting smothered and it's keep getting surrounded by bacteria, it's going to die. When it dies, it's never going to grow again.
Oh.
That is the biggest reason for, outside of autoimmune disorders that we have no control over, that is the biggest reason why Black women are losing their hair.
Really? So what does that mean, like getting it trapped and it can't come up? Like, what are some instances or examples of that?
So an example, say that you have an extreme sweater. They may sweat a lot at night. They may have a very
Oh, I thought you meant
lifestyle.
like a sweater, like a wool sweater.
No, like
It's like put my sweater on and my hair follows.
all right. Let me add some clarity. So when people are sweating a lot, the sweat has salt that dries out the hair. It creates an area of moisture
Okay.
that breeds bacteria. And then they leave that in for quite some time before the hair is addressed again for maybe 30 days or something like that.
Oh.
They think, I'm going to make this last. This needs to last forever.
So like what Shonda said, like clean. Make sure your hair is clean.
Yeah, or you can get services that you can still have good longevity with, but you still have access to your own hair to treat it so that you're not creating that atmosphere for the hair to not grow.
That makes sense.
Right, but in addition to that, like she was saying, if you're profusely sweating and you're working out, exercising, or just normal everyday sweating just because you're a sweater, you have to cleanse that scalp. You have to make sure that your hair is clean again because the salt buildup from the sweating actually can damage your hair. So that's very important to know.
Absolutely.
Okay. So what are some options for women experiencing hair loss?
Well, there's so many things out there. We talked about this earlier with consulting a physician, a dermatologist, to do hair replacement, which may or may not work. We're still unsure about that. You can take hair vitamins. You can do, I had a brain fart.
Oh, that's okay. I don't know, so they don't know you.
There's so many things that you can do. You can do laser treatments on your scalp.
Okay.
those are some things that are a little more costly, a little more time consuming because it takes, months for you to see some effects from the laser treatments. So there's a lot of things out there that you can do.
Gotcha. You want to add, Q?
Yep. So as long as the follicle is not dead, there's any type of stimulation that can get the oxygen moving, that can, get that blood circulating up to the follicle, up to the scalp. As long as the follicle is not dead, any type of manipulation can get that hair to grow back. So the most inexpensive way is, shampooing and the massage to make sure
Hair
that we're
treatments.
stimulating that blood,
Okay.
and then conditioning, and then avoiding, any type of high tension, to keep it from growing.
Stress.
And then if the follicle is not dead, obviously you get into more different types of treatments that can be expensive. They have injections. Some people have seen results with that. People who really don't see results with the injections are people who suffer from alopecia totalis. It's like a complete baldness of the head. That's usually like some autoimmune disorder in which the immune system just attacks the hair follicles for some unknown reason.
Okay.
So it's quite impossible in most cases for all of those different types of treatments to get the hair to grow back. But in those circumstances, we can do topical hair replacements. We can do weaves. We can do wigs. They also have medical grade, wigs in which a different type of glue and a silicone base is applied to the scalp outside of like standard Swiss lace or HD lace. That has a better hold. They can shampoo it and all of that stuff while it's on their head as if it's their hair. So it cuts down on the inconvenience or the uncomfortability of people just seeing you bald at all times.
Gotcha.
So
I like that. All right. So can you give us some tips if you're trying to move from having a relaxer to being natural? What can you do?
Oh, absolutely. I've transitioned so many people throughout my career from relaxed to natural. So the first thing that you want to do is make sure that you have a consultation with the person that wishes to do that, to make sure they have a very, very good understanding and realistic expectations of the journey. If they have a whole lot of hair and they want to be left with that same amount of hair at the end of the transition, they have to understand that that's going to take about 12 to 18 months because we're going to be doing routine trimming of the hair to keep that with some hair so that they don't feel bald while they're undergoing it. And some people just opt for the big chop where they just cut it all off and they grow it all back. That's radical to some people who have lengthy hair and they're not willing to undergo that. So making sure that they have a really realistic expectation, making sure that you educate them on product knowledge and even send them home with products from your back bar and teaching them how to use those products in between visits with you.
All right, Q, you're always dropping the gems. I so appreciate it. We're going to take a quick break, and then when we come back, I'll ask Shonda a quick question about the big chop, and then we'll get to Sherry Sims talking about hair in the workplace. Thanks so much.
Are you ready to glow? Your glow up is waiting for you. Glow Beauty Lounge is the home of beautiful hair and polished makeup services. Everything beauty. Based in Cincinnati, the Glow Beauty Lounge offers a variety of different services to make their clients feel unique and beautiful. Contact Shonda Tutt today to book a complimentary consultation or call them with any questions at 513-290-8329.
Welcome back to the All In Cincinnati radio show. Today we are talking about Black women in our hair. Our guest star Sherry Sims, founder and CEO of the Black Career Women's Network, Q, founder and CEO of the Elite Cafe Beauty Studio and online boutique, and Shonda Tutt, founder and CEO of Glow Beauty Lounge. So Shonda, please tell us about the big chop. Is it necessary? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, the big chop is not necessary unless you have some breakage all throughout your hair and you're transitioning partially because you want to, but secondly because you need to. So if you need to cut your hair because of breakage and things like that, then of course the big chop is, the best option because you can just start fresh. And people who just don't want to maintain the difference between the naturally curly hair and the straight processed hair on the ends of the hair, they may want to just say, I'm just going to chop it all off and start over. it's not necessary because you can maintain that natural curl pattern along with the straight ends and continue to slowly chop off the ends. Well, chop is not a good word, cut off the ends.
Sorry, I started you there.
Slowly cut the ends off. You may experience some breakage during that transition. And so you may have to, cut a little more than you might want to. But in the end, as Hugh said, 12 to 18 months later, you'll have the natural hair that you enjoy, and you can start, figuring out what products works best for your hair to maintain that natural curl pattern.
Awesome. So according to the Crown Act, Black women are 54% more likely to feel like they have to wear their hair straight to a job interview to be more successful. And 44% of Black women under age 34 feel pressure to have a headshot with straight hair. So Sherry, can you tell me what you're hearing about professional and work appropriate hair?
Well, it's definitely changing. I would say in the last 5-6 years, the conversations are changing because you are seeing men and women who are showing up to work with their natural hair, whether it's, twist out or dreads or, wash and go. So you're starting to see more of that. And we want that representation because women who are currently in the workplace wearing their hair straight can now decide to transition or wear a twist out because they see other representation within the workplace.
Or a fro. Or a
Or a fro, yes, depending on where you work. Absolutely. I agree.
Do you want to add anything, Q?
Yes. Throughout my career, I've had to consult with individuals and let them know that what they are asking for is not a good fit for the things that they're trying to do in their life, and that once they secure those opportunities, then we can move into other things such as hair color. They want to get these blonde highlights and they have an interview next week. They want to get the baddie blonde Barbie pink wig because they got an upcoming trip, but they spent $700 on the wig, so they want to be able to keep it after the trip and wear it to work. And that environment just isn't a good fit for that. Or even my male clientele who have locks, down their backs. They're tall, they're broad, they're dark, they're intimidating. So we have to figure out ways to tone down their hair.
Well, I want to add to that though, because companies are starting to understand diversity in a new way and starting to embrace the opportunity to really come to work and be your authentic self. So we're not just talking about your personality, but also how you express yourself through your dress. Right. So I think it's best to check your employee handbook to see if there are specific guidelines within that handbook that say, because you do have organizations where they do want a specific image to be portrayed. They have the right to that. Mm-hmm. So if you're thinking about changing jobs or whatever you're going to do in terms of employment, check and see if it fits your sense of style or how you want to show up in a workplace, because it may or may not be a good fit. I mean, I've seen VPs wear full sleeves tattoos or piercings in their face. I've seen pink color hair. It all depends on the culture they're trying to develop within the workplace. Mm-hmm. But when you see more of that, then you can show up with the dreads that are down your back.
Yeah,
right.
I love dreads.
And those things are not going to be a distraction from the talent that you bring into the role that you're in. So start with your handbook first. Read it and see, because that's a gray area too. And because there's always what we call hidden workplace rules. So it may not be in the handbook, but then you still have people who come to work with their own biases and you may be impacted by their individual bias based on your natural hair. That's another conversation for another time.
No, you can get to it if you want to.
What about the mission statement? How does the mission statement of the company tie into the expectations of the workplace?
Well, the mission statement, it depends. You have your DE&I mission statement, and then you have the overall mission of the organization. So that's two different things. The one for DE&I is where you can show up as your authentic self, where the other is more about making sure you're here and you're performing and we're meeting the objectives of the organization. However, those hidden workplace rules, where this is where the impact of the biases come in of the individual that may not necessarily understand what dreads mean or why do you have to wear your hair natural, because they feel like the workplace should be. They're bringing their own personal beliefs and values into the situation. That's where the impact comes in, which means they haven't done their homework, because the employee handbook may say that, natural hair is acceptable, but it may not be in their mind. So again, that's where retaliation comes in, and then you have a whole nother conversation you need to discuss with HR.
Right, and that's
Right, and I agree with that. I agree to first check the handbook to make sure it's it's appropriate for what your company expects or the company that you're inquiring about expects. And in addition to that, I want to add that no, you probably shouldn't show up with a rainbow lace front, trying to get a corporate job. However, I don't think that, excuse me, however, I don't think that how you show up for work or your hair shouldn't dictate who you are or what your capabilities are in the workplace.
what you can do on the job.
Yeah.
No, I agree.
Right.
But when you're thinking about individuals, we have to look at individuals and how they're coming to the workplace with their own biases. It still impacts this because you may know that you are in a safe place, that it's okay for you to show up with your dreads. It's okay for you to show up with whatever that is. But it does not mean that the person who you are interacting with
Right.
agrees with that.
Exactly.
And that's where the conflict can come in.
Exactly.
So, and then you also need to
Know who you're dealing with.
know who you're dealing with and have the tools to be able to advocate for yourself.
Right.
If you ever come across that type of challenge.
Okay.
And what are the tools, Sherry? So we can give them the tools.
The tools is one to call it out the bias and say, and just be direct. It seems like you have an issue or a problem with the way that I wear my hair. Can we discuss this? And say, it seems like there may be a bias here. Or you may experience a microaggression. There could be a comment that's being made. There could be a gesture that's being made. You have microaffirmations, all these other types of microaggressions you can identify that could be subtle, all because of they have a problem with how you are wearing your hair. So if you can identify that you're experiencing microaggression, you call it out. And I always say in my world, when I'm talking to women in our network, a Black woman's best friend is documentation.
Right.
So again, document the experience. And that way, if it ever comes back, then you have place, time, and who witnessed it, and whatever else, if it does become an issue.
And I think that's important, calling people out on what's going
absolutely.
on because
Absolutely.
we don't do that enough.
We don't do it enough.
Yes.
So again, just addressing it. And I always say when you do it, make it safe for you and the other person to have the conversation. Right. Do not be aggressive. Do not approach them aggressively. Just say, hey, I just observed that it seems like you have an issue with the way I'm wearing my hair. And again, body language is everything. So again, approach it being safe enough for them to also want to engage in the conversation as well.
So a lot of women in the workplace have been able to experience them being direct with HR about the micro things. Microaggression as direct being confused as aggression, even with good posture and good body language. So what tools would you have for individuals to work around that to not come off as this angry Black woman?
Yeah, I think that you can just be direct about that and let them know. I don't want this conversation or me to be perceived as the stereotype of an angry Black woman. And then right at that point, what you're doing is making it known that you understand that there's a possibility you may see me that way, and let's take that off the table, right? And have this professional conversation. So you're expecting them to show up now, showing you respect, and let's have this conversation respectfully. And come and make sure we can agree to a resolution. So again, it's about you getting ahead of it and addressing that the possible bias could be there. And they're either going to say, "Oh no, that's not true," or you can see it in their body language. So again, it's about calling it out and saying, "I'm aware of what the perception could possibly be about me, but we're going to start here and change the narrative."
Train professionally is important to remain competitive in today's job market and achieve your career goals. Black Career Women's Network is a national career development organization dedicated to fostering the professional growth of Black women. Since 2012, they have helped thousands of Black women nationwide gain clarity and confidence to execute proven strategies to create the change they want to see in their careers. It's a universal fact that Black women experience more career challenges than their coworkers or managers while striving to succeed. Black Career Women's Network helps you take a deeper dive into how to build, navigate, and manage your career with clarity, strategies, and solutions to gain traction and create the change you want to see in your career. They believe to achieve your professional aspirations, several elements should be developed and supported. Joining Black Career Women's Network can provide you with an opportunity of benefits such as access to networking opportunities, career guidance and mentorship, professional development, and an abundance of resources. Contact them today at 513-729-9724.
The All in Cincinnati radio show is back. We are discussing Black women in our hair. We started the show with an informative session about maintaining our hair, hair loss, and styles in the workplace with a skilled human resource professional and two of the most notable hairstylists in the region. We will continue our conversation with Kamara Douglas, former Administrative and Community Affairs Director for Councilmember Chris Seelbach, who spearheaded the Crown Act legislation in Cincinnati. Hello, Kamara, and welcome to the All in Cincinnati radio show.
Hi, good morning. How are you?
I am wonderful. So we know you are now working as an integrated campaign coordinator in Washington, D.C. Still, you were instrumental in passing the Crown Act legislation in Cincinnati, and you continue to advocate for the rights of Black women in our hair. We had to invite you back to our show. So really quickly, tell them about you and what you're up to and how you're doing.
Absolutely. So I recently moved to Washington, D.C. I was in Cincinnati, I want to say for about like 6 or 7 years. So I recently moved back to D.C. So I do miss Cincinnati. And right now, I'm just busy trying to change the world, working on policies that impact everybody, including the Black and Brown community, and just trying to make the world a more safer, less racist place.
I love that, and we definitely miss you. So for those unfamiliar with your work, tell us how you work to pass the Crown Act in Cincinnati and how the process started, began, and how you implemented it. Can you give us the 1-2?
Absolutely. So I want to say this took place 2019. This was shortly after California recently passed their Crown Act. And I recall talking to Chris Seelbach at the time. He was a council member and my former boss. And I remember sharing with him my experience. And I also remember other women sharing their experience with Chris as well. And we had a discussion and he decided, we need to do this. And I said, great, this is perfect. We are going to really drive this and spearhead this. So during the time, what we ended up doing is creating a major campaign in which we worked with various council members and the community to pass this bill. Sorry, there's a little traffic in the background. So at the time, I recall reaching out to Jasmine Costin. And if you ever have a chance, there is an article in which Sherry Coolidge actually she wrote, and it was about my experience with having natural hair and when I first experienced discrimination having natural hair. And Jasmine Costin, she graced the cover with her beautiful natural hair. She also shared her insight. So I definitely want to give her credit as well. So what we ended up doing is having a major blitz, reaching out to women that had their own experiences and allowing them to share their insight and experience about facing discrimination. Because, just to be honest, when you hear about these stories or when you experience it yourself, you just shrug it off and say, oh, well, that's just how it is, whatever. But, thinking about it now, you never realize that it's just pure discrimination. You just chalk it up as, oh, I have to get a relaxer, or let me just straighten my hair. And I mean, I wish that, what we would have known then, we knew now. Like, for example, with relaxers giving you, a link to uterine fibroids or even cervical cancer. And anyway, so I just recall just working with women, being on the radio, being on Black radio to share my message and just urging women, Black women, to share their stories. And I recall during the actual hearing, we worked with, at the time, Tamaya Denard. She was serving on council. She amplified the message by not only sharing her story, but ensuring that Black women knew what was going on. And she helped us support the legislation. And at the time, Alicia Reese also shared and testified her experiences when she served on council. So I absolutely want to give them credit because they used their voices to amplify the message as well. And I mean, it was very intense. And we honestly thought that it was going to be like an easy win, but we actually had a lot of pushback. And at the time, Amy Murray, she served on council, and she was the only one that voted against it. And she said, well, I'm only voting against it because it should already be defined in anti-discrimination laws. But the fact of the matter is, the reason why this was introduced is because there's no clear definition of natural hair discrimination. And oftentimes it's been cases that have been thrown out and Black women would lose. So introducing this helped create a clear, defined understanding of what the law is and how it's discriminatory. So, I have to be honest. If it wasn't for Chris Seelbach, Tamaya, Alicia Reese, Jasmine Cosin, and even Brittany Gray, who is a hairstylist, and she also shared and amplified her message and the impact that her clients also dealt with. So I remember just fighting for this, and Black women in the administration, they would approach me saying, thank you so much for doing this. And, that was the first time I felt like, I felt not necessarily the work was meaningful, but I was literally helping Black women get their identity back, not having to conform to society norms. And that meant a lot to me. And I got very emotional, But yeah, I'm glad that I was able to help. I remember just screaming and shouting, trying so hard to get people to speak up, women to speak up, men to speak up about their experiences. So that's what I have.
Thank you so much, Kamara. That was wonderful. Just in 1 minute, what can you tell us that Black women should do if they feel discriminated as it regards to their hair?
Absolutely. If they feel like they're being discriminated upon, one, check with your human resource officer or in the office just to ensure that, one, this is an issue. And if they don't think it's an issue, go to your elected official. There's a reason why you elected them. And you best believe they better make sure they do something about it. And two, I would check the laws in your city. So after Cincinnati passed the natural hair ordinance, we actually received calls from other elected officials in surrounding towns, jurisdictions, and municipalities asking us if they could also use our language. And of course, and actually there was a bill in the Ohio State Legislature that unfortunately was stalled, trying to also introduce anti-discrimination on natural hair. But unfortunately, we're dealing with the cards that are dealt. And unfortunately, a lot of the Republicans don't necessarily see it as an issue. But I would definitely look into that. I would ask the bill sponsor to reintroduce it and let them know that they also have support. But yeah, if you live and work in the city of Cincinnati, it is illegal. It is in the charter. We didn't make it just anything or a report. We made it an actual bill, an ordinance, in which it states in the charter that it is illegal to discriminate on natural hair.
Thank you, Kamara Douglas, the former Administrative and Community Affairs Director for Council Member Chris Seelbach, who spearheaded the Crown Act legislation in Cincinnati. Let's take a quick break. We'll be right back.
It's time to book an experience. Q Ray, founder and CEO of Elite Cafe Beauty Studio and Online Boutique, specializes in alternative hair care techniques, fashionable apparel, and self-care products. Located at 7134 Montgomery Road, Elite Cafe's goal is to share a very peaceful, efficient, and comforting experience during each and every visit, and offers online shopping experience too. Elite Cafe was created as a resource where hair, beauty, and fashion lovers can purchase products, book appointments, and learn the latest beauty tips and tricks all in one place. Online scheduling is available for all appointments as well as online shopping 24/7. Book with Q-Ray today.
Ladies, let's talk about trends and products. So, Q, what are the latest styles and trends for women of all ages, young adults, middle age, and seniors?
Well, currently the latest trends for younger people, people who are in their early to late teens to their early to mid 20s, they like to wear a lot of braids and they like to wear a lot of weaving extensions. They like to really float back and forth between the two. They want to have hair on their head, but they're really not interested in really practically wearing it. So that's the group of people that us as seasoned professionals were trying to reach to get them to learn how to care for the hair that they have. So when they get older in age, they'll have hair to wear.
I love it.
So people who are, in their later 20s up until their 30s, they are really concerned with wearing their hair. They're really concerned with, I covered it up and did all of these things to it over the years, and that's too much maintenance, and they not into, I don't want to get up in the morning and have to do all of that stuff to prepare for my day. I got kids, I got a husband, I got responsibilities. So they really are interested in wearing their hair in a variety of different ways so that they don't get bored. They like to wear puffs. They like to wear their afro. They like to wear wet and go. They like to put product in it to define it so that it's shiny, so that it's manageable, so that it doesn't have a great deal of shrinkage. They like to wear silk presses, and they like to wear twist outs.
And silk presses are blowouts.
Yes, blowout silk press. It really truly depends on the technique of the stylist, but we're moving into the blowout, getting more silkier, having more movability. We want it to move. When you turn your head, the hair needs to go in that direction. When the wind blows it and it stops, it needs to fall back into place the way it was when it was styled.
Right.
Nothing really should disturb it if it's blown in any direction or the other. So that's where we move to with the blowout silk press.
Gotcha. And then like the older generation. So you said late 20s to 30s.
So I will say people in their 40s or older, they really want hair that's easy, but they want it to look like they did all the work in the world. Those are the people that we have to make sure they have realistic expectations of what they're asking for and what they can maintain,
right,
and what is actually truly logical.
Now, I fall under that category. My hair look good. I put work into this morning, and it do look really good. It look really, really good.
No doubt about it. But I spend a great deal of time educating that category of people on what's logical and what's realistic and what they can truly expect. And if they want to go into I want to look like I'm a little bit younger, but I really still want to look mature, then I have to spend a great deal of time teaching them how to upkeep those styles. And when they show me they're not a good candidate for it, I don't do it again.
Really?
Yes. It's not a good way for them to spend their money.
Okay.
You want people to understand that you value them as an individual. They work hard for their money. They're not going to be too fond of keep giving you money and then they come out and they stuff is not lasting. So when they understand that you care about them as an individual, they begin to admire you more for your professionalism and your knowledge versus the person that's just going to do my hair because I pay her.
Right.
And that's how you build relationships.
It is.
And have a long-lasting clientele.
Okay. So what about hair care products? What are some Black hair care products, especially over-the-counter options? I know they've improved immensely over the years. So can you give us some tips?
They have improved immensely over the years. And one of the reasons that improvement has taken place is because stylists they struggle here. Stylists really don't do a good job of having retail products at the salon that they own or work in. They've been so focused on providing a service they don't send their clients home with products to maintain their hair, especially for the client that's going to be gone a while. You know, they may be taking a long trip. They may have something coming up in their life where they don't have those expenses to come in frequently, but they need something at home to care for their hair. So since stylists have dropped the ball tremendously in that area, our professional retailers haven't had any choice but to put that product on the shelves. The problem with that is consumers aren't educated on how to use it.
Right.
So they see this big name brand such as Design Essentials or Paul Mitchell, and they know the reputation behind it. I'm going to buy this because this is good. This is Paul Mitchell. This is Design Essential. They slather it all in their head, and they're not getting the results because they aren't educated in it, because that is the stylist's responsibility. So that's the problem. But the good thing is that generally when you have over-the-counter products, they're really truly, with the exception of like a relaxer, not truly chemical based. So you may not get the results that you need, but your hair shouldn't fall out. If you go get a shampoo that just doesn't agree with your hair, it may dry it out. It may have some shedding, but you're not gonna lose all your hair.
Right.
So some of the really good products, I know Mael, I don't know, people are concerned because they've been bought by P&G.
Oh.
So people are concerned that since it's going to be manufactured on a much larger scale, that it won't work the same. So we got to keep our eye out on that. I don't know how that's going to unfold over time, but Shea Moisture is a really good product too for beginners, because it's very inexpensive and it's really easy to work through that product line to determine what works for your hair and what doesn't. But I will tell people to refrain from cocktailing, which is what we call it. When you mix up a bunch of stuff, it's like building a drink. It got all of these different ingredients, and at the end, you got a final product.
Right.
People do that with products. They get a product line from Mael, they get a product line from Shea Moisture, they get another product line from Design Essentials, and then they got this Cantu shampoo or whatever, and they mix all of that up in a cocktail and wonder why they're not getting nowhere.
Do you mean like individually, or actually mixing it up like and then putting it all at the same time?
No.
Okay.
Nope. They will use different things from different product lines, like at a large scale.
Right.
They'll use a product line, a different product shampoo, a different conditioner, a different leave-in conditioner, a different styling cream, a different shine serum. All of those things will be from completely different lines.
I'm glad you said that, because I do stick with just one brand and I'll use everything from that line. And I find for my hair that works better when I stick with the line and use everything from that line.
Good point. So how do you maintain relaxed hair versus natural hair? Can you talk about that?
So relaxed hair, since the bond is chemically broken, you're going to want to do a great deal to make sure that you keep that hair strengthened with a different series of proteins and conditioners, because that hair is much more fragile. It's easier to break. But you don't want it to be heavy and weighed down. So you want to refrain from like cream-based leave-in products that you style with, because that's going to affect the manageability and the movement of the hair. It's going to have it very heavy. Versus natural hair, you really need those humectants, those heavy cream-based moisturizers, those. And in both types of hair, you need heat with conditioner sometimes. Like during the winter months when our skin and our hair is the driest, those deep conditioning treatments that are stimulated by heat, or steam treatments, they open up the follicle and allow that hair to absorb the moisture, like the porosity that I was talking about earlier in the show.
Yep.
So those are the two different things. But at home, you want to make sure that you're protecting your hair, sleeping in silk or satin. A lot of times I've had to offer my clients satin pillowcases, especially when they're traveling. Just, take your pillowcase and slip it on the pillow at the hotel.
It makes a world of difference. Yes. So you mentioned satin and bonnets. So I want to kind of switch really quickly and go over to Sherry. So, let's start with what is the reality of hair policies in the workplace?
The reality of hair policy in the workplace is evolving. So if you work for an organization that has a diversity and inclusion representative, more than likely they are pushing for, inclusivity. And inclusivity means that, of course, you are embracing natural hair in the workplace, the different variations of styles, whether you're male or female. But there, it only can go so far with that, right?
Right.
So again, I want to make this clear to everyone who is listening. bonnets are still not appropriate for the workplace. Do not blow me up on Twitter. Do not blow me up on Instagram. I am telling you the truth.
Right. Facts. That's why I wanted to throw it to you really quickly, because you started talking about satin and bonnets, and I was like, let's just talk about that in the workplace. It's a no-no.
Yeah, it is a no-no. And here's the thing. If you are wearing a bonnet to work and now you are considering career progression, right? And you wanted to put yourself on some sort of career path, you need to reevaluate how you were showing up at work. There is no way possible as just an individual when you walk out the door in the morning that you wear a bonnet and think that what you have on your head is acceptable to walk into the workplace with. And if you question it before you leave, more than likely you don't need to wear it.
I agree. So how can Black women address workplace questions or concerns about their hair?
I think you start with, I would say, it depends. There's a lot, each workplace has its own political pieces of culture, right? And when you're thinking about talking about having these conversations, check and see if you have a diversity and inclusion program, more than likely there you have employee resource groups. So if you have employee resource groups, then you're going to have one that is geared towards African Americans in the workplace. That's probably the first place to start. If you want to have those conversations, is go to your employee resource group and talk with other employees who look like you who are in that specific group. Start there. Now, if you work for a company that does not have a diversity and inclusion program, then you're probably seeking out peers that you can have this conversation with, but you need to be careful with that, because if they do not have a diversity and inclusion program, that means that they're really not invested in inclusivity in the workplace, which is going to make it harder for you to advocate for yourself if you need to.
So should organizations have DE&I
Absolutely.
programs? Okay.
If you're talking about truly wanting your employees to show up as their authentic selves in every aspect, having a diversity inclusion program will support them being able to do so. And it really is in the best interest of the organization overall, because when you're talking about looking for talent,
Right.
they're going to look and see, can I show up and be myself? And they're going to be looking at your Glassdoor reviews, your Indeed reviews to see, if you have diversity or even just feedback about the organization overall.
Right.
So again, it's in their best interest to support this, because the most amazing talent you have may have full sleeve tattoos and be able to meet the initiative of the organization.
So what is so important about DE&I including hair in the verbiage and language?
Why is it important? Because that's part of the message of showing up authentically.
Right.
That is absolutely part of the message and even when you think about every culture, like for instance, there's a trend that I see a lot with Caucasian women who wear pink hair, right? They want to be able to know that they can come to work and wear that as well. So they may also receive a bias based on the fact that they're wearing these colors that are not necessarily traditional within their culture as well.
Right.
So if you think about that specifically, it's to support everyone to be able to show up authentically.
Right. I want to talk a little bit more about microaggressions. Say someone likes your hair and wants to touch your hair. And you don't want your hair to touch, you don't want your person to be touched. How do you handle that? How do you advocate for yourself?
Yeah, I mean, if the person is being respectful by saying, that they like your hair, can I touch it? It's up to you to say yes or no. If you decide to say no, then just explain why, right? Again, I always say you empower yourself in educating someone else when you explain the why. I have a person who's told me, if you're explaining yourself, you lost, but it depends on the content of how that's happening, right? So in this instance, you're not losing by explaining yourself. What you're doing is you're educating. And when it comes to diversity and inclusion, it is all about education and awareness. So if someone's asking to touch your hair and you choose to say no, explain why you're saying no.
Right.
Because you have the power to do that. So it's not about being condescending. Well, I can't touch your hair, so why you want to touch mine? No. I prefer for you not to touch my hair, because within our culture, that really is not something that we do.
Right. Now, what if the person has already touched your hair? And that feels offensive to you? How do you handle it?
What you do is you come back and say, what you did it just made me feel uncomfortable. You touching my hair just made me feel uncomfortable, or it made me feel like this, or I would appreciate if you do not do that again. And this is why. Again, it's always about coming back and explaining the reason why you're making a decision to say yes or no.
Okay, I understand. And then, so how can Black women advocate for more accommodating hair policies in the workplace?
Twofold answer to this question. All right. First, the first answer is if you have a diversity inclusion program in your organization, go to your council, your D&I council, and share your concerns around, the lack of support around being able to wear your natural hair. And then their job is to create things to help to reinforce and to support being able to do that, right? Now, if you work for an organization that does not have a diversity inclusion program or any representation of DE&I in the workplace, it's going to be a little bit more of a difficult task to get that done, to where you may just look at your employee handbook to see if there's any gray areas. If you're someone who is, more of a disruptor and you want to come and show up to work with your natural hair and see what happens, to see if you can kind of get the policies changed and change the narrative that way, go for it, right? Yeah. And again, if that does happen and you start to experience retaliation, document that. If you need to go to HR, assess if your HR is pro-employee or pro-employer, because that will depend on if they're going to support your efforts or not. But again, you can be an advocate and stand up for yourself. And if you are bold enough to show up to work with your natural hair and to pay attention to some of the responses, you may be this one that may get the policy change. You just never know.
Right.
But you won't know till you try it.
Until you try it, exactly. You just got to not have fear. Q, anything else you want to tell us about how to maintain healthy hair?
Oh, of course. Definitely make sure that you share with your stylist if they did something new that you're unfamiliar with, how that worked for you, so they can make suggestions on how you can care for your hair. A thing that I've done throughout my entire career with my entire clientele is teaching them how to care for their hair hands-on, one-on-one. Like I teach pineapple methods for twist outs and wash and goes. I teach pin curls for medium length and long hair, so that people can refrain from putting heat to their hair, but they can still have long-lasting curls and waves. I teach people how to wrap their hair. I teach people how to tie their scarves. I teach people how to sleep with their bonnets or even their pillowcases. There are a lot of different things that your stylist can teach. And if you are in the care of a stylist that is unwilling to teach, you need to find another stylist. That is our responsibility.
I agree. And then how long should you wait? Do you feel like it's 1 visit, 2 visits?
Oh, no. It's right away.
Right away?
Yeah, it's right away.
You don't give them additional chances?
No, it's right away because y'all pay us right away.
That's very true.
Y'all pay us at the end of the service. We make sure that it worked for you. It may look nice when you left. It may have looked nice the next day, but it probably didn't last 2 weeks as you expected in comparison to a previous style. It probably didn't hold up well to the person that did your hair before, but that person was rude. So you have to spend time with having that dialogue so that you can start to fine tune and customize your services to each client, each individual that sits in your chair.
Gotcha. And so what's the best way for you to learn what type of hair you have? And can your hair change over time?
Oh, hair changes over time, all the time. Hair changes with medication. Hair changes with protein. Too much, it snaps in half. It changes with the weather. If the weather is dry, your hair has a harder time. Like I tend to understand that my skin and hair does better when I'm traveling in the South because it's not very harshly cold there.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So medications that change. And of course, age. When you have gray hair, that hair responds vastly different to everything else. It responds different to shampooing.
I know about that.
It responds different to being straightened. It responds immensely different to being colored, extremely different to being colored. And even hair that has been combed out of locks, that hair responds completely different to hair, that is loose. People who've had locks who don't want to chop them all off, they want to get them combed out and they want to have these amazing blowout and silk presses. That's just not possible. You have to teach them how to express their hair in its natural texture or get them to understand that what they want to do with their hair to express it in that long, free-flowing style may either require them cutting it completely off or getting a virgin relaxer.
So I saw Sherry's head nod when
Yes.
Q said your hair responds differently when it's gray. I have a couple of gray hairs coming in. So what can I expect?
Well, with the way that you wear your hair is going to respond really, really well. What you cannot expect is if you decide to get it colored, that within 2 weeks, when your new growth starts to grow, that gray won't be visible. It will, and we won't be able to safely color you in 2 weeks. So we'll have to get you exposed to like some topical things that, they have like these mascara, brushes where you can brush fibers into the hair in the front where it's most visible if you have gray in those areas in between color visits, because you can't color every time you see a stylist. At least you shouldn't. I don't. So those are the different things that we'll have to introduce you to for people who really aren't ready to see their gray, but gray just responds completely different.
Ladies, you've offered incredible insights about Black women and their hair. We have Sherry, Q, and Shonda, and Kamara spoke a little bit about the Crowned Act. Shonda, can you tell us what's the best way to reach you?
Yes, you can reach me on Instagram at Salons by JC Cincinnati, or you can also reach me at Love Queen Tut. That's my personal Instagram, and feel free to send me a DM, and we can schedule an appointment at that point.
All right. Thank you
All
so
right.
much, Shonda.
Thank you.
And Sherry, how can we contact you and also give us some words of wisdom?
Sure. So I am on LinkedIn. You can just find me at Sherry Sims. And on Instagram, it's Hello Sherry Sims. And if you want to follow BCWN, it's just BCW Network.
I love that. And do you have anything else to add from our previous conversation about how Black women can advocate for hair in the workplace?
Yeah, just I would say speak up for yourself, advocate for yourself, speak up, call out any biases that you may experience, and go to work and be you.
Right. What about Ohio being an at-will state? How does that impact you?
At-will is a little complicated.
Okay.
There's some gray areas for that. Of course, you can be terminated for any reason. But again, it also depends on the experience you've had while you were there. So if there was any behaviors that were discriminatory that led up to your termination, or maybe just experience you had overall, that can be a little bit more complicated when it comes to if you decide you want to take the case to court.
Right. And culture is a big thing in the workplace. So how can you assess the culture to make sure it's a good fit for you?
Oh, goodness. That's a whole nother conversation.
That's
but there's
okay,
three
but
things. I'll give three things. I have this whole list of things that you should be assessing when you walk into a workplace culture.
Okay.
But the first thing is you need to know who could be a possible advocate. Who are some of the characters in the workplace? Like who is the backstabber? Who could be the go-to person? Who's the gossiper? Because all these things will impact how you build relationships. Find out who is the leader. Who's the person that's the influencer? Who does everybody go to? Because they're the ones, they may not necessarily have the title, but they're heavily, if they can influence the team to get things done.
Right.
So just think about who are those key people that you want to build those relationships with. Cultures are different. Last thing, I'll say number 3, make sure you identify what the hidden workplace rules are.
Right. You mentioned that earlier. Yeah.
That's hugely important because those are the unspoken things that actually happen in the workplace that's not really written down, but that's the law.
Right. Right.
And so those are the things.
Those are the expectations.
The expectations but they're not on paper. But if you see everyone doing it, more than likely, that's the way it's done. And that's what you pretty much need to follow.
Love that. All right. And then Q, how can we contact you? And do you have any words of wisdom?
Oh, I do.
I know you do.
So primarily, I can be contacted through my website. People can shop. People can schedule at www.elitecafe.co, via email, hello@elitecafe.co. On my website, I also have a contact page for individuals who may not be local, who would like to follow up and have a one-on-one conversation about the things or topics that we discussed during this show. So if you go to my site and click contact, fill out your information, I'll be able to follow up with you. But for people who are local, if you want to schedule a one-on-one consult in the salon where we can discuss one-on-one the things that we discussed here and what you can do to implement things to make your hair healthier or better overall. And of course, my Instagram is @elitecafe.co.
Gotcha.
I want to add too, if you would love to follow Black Women's Network, you can also find us on LinkedIn. The website is bcwnetwork.com. And we have these kind of conversations all the time. So if you're looking for support, want to learn how to be an advocate for yourself in the workplace, or just want to learn to be a better professional, in terms of being a Black woman and navigating the workplace, we got you. We'll support you.
Love it. Q, any last minute words of inspiration?
Oh, y'all keep being great.
I love it. All right. Thank you so much, ladies. It's been a wonderful show today. Stay tuned for next week.
We're rolling together now.